Is this really my first anthology movie? Okay, everybody, today we're going all the way back to 1982 to look at a little gem that never gets enough light shined on it, doesn't get talked about like it should. We are talking Creepshow. Before we go any further, before we dig into this gem anymore, once and again, and as always, to the trailer.
Coming soon. Jolting tales of horror. Creepshow. From the author of Carrie, The Shining, and Cujo. And the creator of Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. You'll scream, ghastly ghouls. Cringe at weird kids. And shiver at the doings of evil doctors.
This is going to be extremely painful, Mr. Barrow.
Creepshow will grab you, grow on you, and give you the creeps.
No, this is going to be an entirely new experience.
Creepshow, the most fun you'll ever have being scared.
Okay, this motion picture was directed by George Romero. Enough said, really. But let's get down to it. Of course, he directed Night of the Living Dead. But he did other stuff, too. We're talking about The Crazies, and Night Riders, and The Dark Half, and Monkey Shines. But of course, really, he's known as the Dead Guy. He did Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, Diarrhea of the Dead. It doesn't make a difference if it had dead at the end of it. It's basically George Romero for all intents and purposes. We know it. We love it. It is what it is. Let's keep moving. Starring as Henry, the one and only Hal Holbrook. You know I love me, the fucking Hal Holbrook. Let's go. We're talking about he has been in motion pictures like All the President's Men, and Lincoln, and Magnum Force, and The Great White Hope, and The Fog, and The Star Chamber, and Wall Street, and Fletch Lives, and The Firm, and The Florentine, and about 4,000 other things. No bullshit, long career. Let's keep moving. Okay, playing Wilma, Adrienne Barbeau. And you know I love Adrienne Barbeau. Let's do this. We're talking about she's been in motion pictures like The Fog, and Escape from New York, and The Cannonball Run, and Swamp Thing, and Back to School, and Fatherhood, and on TV from way back when she was in Maude, and then Carnival, and Revenge, and General Hospital, and she's also done a ton of voice work that you probably didn't even realize that she did. So Adrienne Barbeau, long career, is what it is, been on the scene since the 70s, and I mean like earlier 70s. She's been around for a long time, folks. Respect. Playing Dexter? Fritz Weaver. Huh? No. As soon as you see the face, you know who I mean. We're talking about he has been in motion pictures like Marathon Man, and The Day of the Dolphin, and Black Sunday, for God's sakes, and Demon Seed, and The Thomas Crown Affair, and Jaws of Satan. And TV, Cannon, Barnaby Jones, Murder, She Wrote. Never one of those names I'd feel go up to somebody and say, hey, Fritz Weaver, they go, huh? But if you point at his face, anybody of my generation especially goes, oh, yeah. Playing Richard, the late, great Leslie Nielsen. Let's kick this into play. We're talking about he's been in stuff like Airplane, and The Naked Gun, and Prom Night, and The Patriot, and Soul Man, and Dracula Dead and Loving It, and The Poseidon Adventure, and he was in TV like, The Virginian, and Man from U.N.C.L.E., and Kung Fu, Cannon, and SWAT, and Police Squad. The guy's career is legendary, man. He started off really as a dramatic actor and turned into a comedic actor. So he had two careers, both of them cool. Is what it was. Playing Mr. Pratt, E.G. Marshall. Again, another name where you're like, We'll get there. We're talking about he has been in stuff like Superman 2 and Billy Jack Goes to Washington and My Chauffeur and Power and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and massive amounts of TV work. We're talking Chicago Hope, The Defenders, Playhouse 90, The Brady Bunch, The Virginian. So, he was around, folks. He was around. And playing Harry, Ted Danson. Need I say more? We're talking about he's been in stuff like Three Men and a Baby. He has been in stuff like Body Heat and Saving Private Ryan and Mumford and Cousins and a little movie that I love that came after 2000 was a movie called The Amateurs. Check it out. It was really good. He was really good in it. Simple, plain, great flick. And of course he was on TV. You know, Sam Malone from Cheers. And he was in Becker and stuff like that. So, is what it was. And there's other names and faces in this thing. Come on, let's knock off the shit. Even Stephen King himself is in it, in a pretty prominent role. But keep an eye out for all these people. You'll see them. They pop up here, there, and a little bit of everywhere. Okay, everybody, we're going to do this in 90 seconds or less. Keep it fast, keep it entertaining, keep it moving, so we can get to the summation where we would much rather be. And this probably won't even take 90 seconds because it's that kind of a movie. Anyway, you got this little boy. He's being chastised, yelled at, kind of abused by his father for reading this Creepshow comic. The father takes it and throws it in the trash. Well, the thing from the cover, whatever it is, kind of comes up and greets the kid at the window and takes him off into the world of Creepshow and shows him all these stories for more or less intents and purposes. Anyway, and those stories are as such. You got one called Father's Day, where a dad comes back from the grave because he's mad his daughter murdered him, and he just wants his Father's Day cake. You got stuff like the Jordy Verrill story about a guy who gets a meteor in his backyard and he touches it and it turns him into a plant. I know, sounds weird, but it is what it is. You got something like Something to Tide Me Over, where you got this story about a man who's upset that his wife is cheating on him and leaving for another man, so he decides to kill him, but they come back from the grave to seek revenge. You got something like The Crate, where a crate is found underneath the stairwell, and this big furry guy, well, kind of short furry guy, causes some havoc, wreaks some damage, and eats a few people. Is what it is. And finally, you got this little movie about this guy who, well, you know, he's a little bit upset about germs. He lives in this isolated, super clean environment, only to be attacked and ripped apart by roaches. So, it is what it is. That's the kind of movie it is. Bunch of short stories all thrown together. Take them for what they are. Okay, everybody. Does Creepshow work? Yes, it does. I still remember going to the movies and seeing it as a kid. Is it great? We'll get into that. Anyway, first, the directing. It's good. It's solid. It does what it needs to do in a motion picture like this, which I will explain more of in a minute when I talk about what kind of a motion picture this truly is. The writing, it's a little campy, it's a little hammy, and way overblown, but again, fits this kind of a motion picture, and I'll get to that about what I mean. In the acting, well, it's like the other two segments. Like the writing, it's a little hammy, strong-handed, gets the job done, but works for the kind of motion picture that this is. Now let's get to that about what it is. I know you've heard me say it before. You've heard me mention it with movies like The Crow, or The Warriors, or Streets of Fire, that they are comic book flicks. And they are. But no movie, I don't think before or since, has taken the comic book feel more to heart and more seriously than 82's Creepshow. I mean, this is a comic book motion picture. 110%. There's scenes in it where they will frame the action with a comic book border just to let you know, hey, guys, this is a comic book. Don't forget it. There's times where the background behind people's heads when they scream or yell or scared turns into this wild lightning thing, and they're like, guys, this is a comic book. Just like, don't forget that. And the colors and the hues and the saturations that they use on the screen, everything goes from very blue to very red to very green to very white to very... It's 110% a comic book movie. I mean, more than any other one that I've ever seen before, since, or anything. This is a comic book. And let's not forget, on top of that, this is an anthology story. And anthology stories were always cool. They were always fun. You remember how much we liked them. You remember whether it was stuff like a Heavy Metal or Trilogy of Terror or the Monster Club or something like that. We loved anthology movies. They were fun. They don't really get made that much anymore. And this is a great example of one. But with all anthology movies, sometimes there's pluses and sometimes there's negatives. Some of the pluses is they try to give you a little bit of everything, especially in this one. If you're afraid of skeletons that come from the ground, we're going to give you one. If you're afraid of your body being transformed and taken over, we're going to give you that story. If you're yucked out by insects, we're going to do one of those too. Hey, if you just like a straight up monster flick, we got one that lives under the stairs. Take it away. And if you want to see zombies coming back from the dead to get revenge on the living, they give you that too. It's kind of like one of those albums where somebody goes out and say, we need a rock track, a ballad track, a dance track, and all. It's the same thing. They tried to hit all the bases with something like this, and they kind of covered it. The downside is they only got so much time to spend on each story, and because of that, all the characters tend to be paper thin and frighteningly stereotypical. I mean, Adrienne Barbeau isn't just a nagging wife. She's so forcefully nagging. It's so over the top. It's borderline ridiculous. You have the jilted lover who's not devilish and evil. He's so devilish and evil, you're like, okay, this is a little bit nuts. You have Jordy Verrill, who's not just the country guy from the woods. He's the unbelievable country guy from the woods. You know, oh, Doc, Lormer, that kind of stuff. So they give you these paper-thin characters that are complete stereotype characters of whatever, and they throw them at you. When that happens, do you get enough time to get invested with these people and these characters? Not really. Do you have enough time to give a shit about what happens to them? Not really. Do you have enough time to sit there and grow terrified when something happens to them? Not really. And that's where this movie lies. It's one of those motion pictures, as you're sitting there and you're watching it, you're more bemused waiting for shit to happen than you are scared at what's happening. Yeah, if you don't like insects and shit, that part will give you the willies. But other than that, you're kind of sitting there like, okay, where's this going to go? The monster got some. But you're not terrified. You're not scared. So don't think you're going to go into Creepshow with a great amount of horror to you. You're just sit there and saying, okay, it would be uncomfortable to have water coming over my face and being buried in the sand. I get it. It'd be uncomfortable to be covered by roaches. Okay. But you're never in terror. You're never scared. This isn't Psycho or Halloween or some shit like that. You just sit there bemused and entertained, and you roll from story to story to story. And being also, I should probably point out, Creepshow was in a weird zone. It gave you the vibe at times it was almost meant for kids, and then something really graphic and messed up would happen. You're saying, no, this isn't meant for kids. So where does it land? If it's one of those things that we're watching as adults, hey, great. If you have kids walking out of the room, there's parts of it that'd be like, okay, it's kind of scary for a kid. And then other parts where you're like, okay, this might be too much. So it was one of those movies I think I had a hard time finding its exact footing about where it was supposed to land and what it was supposed to be. It was like, well, this part's for this age. That part could be okay for that age. And I don't know if it ever helped it when it was meant to find the endearing long-term audience that it was supposed to, because it kind of just landed in a weird area. Anyway, everybody, if you want to watch an old anthology flick, if you want to see a movie that gets right to the point with its stories, like all anthology flicks do, gives you the meat of it and then takes off, Creepshow's okay. Is it the best anthology movie ever? No. But is it fun? Sure. Is it worth an hour and a half? Most definitely. And for its little place in history amongst a George Romero flick and a anthology horror flick from the early 80s, yeah, check it out. You'll be entertained. You'll like it. There's probably more funny shit in it than scary shit in it. But it is what it is. You take it, you roll with it, and you have a good time. All right, everybody, be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Be good to a neighbor. Kind to a stranger. Always help family and friends. But above all else, never, and I mean ever, take any bullshit from anybody. Be good. Get out there and watch Creepshow. See you soon.